Hi, everyone. Okay, so today we're going to go over an email that I sent um, Jessica Hershey and Ian Scarth the day before the hearing. So, as I had mentioned prior, in order for me to get out to Winnipeg, I would have had to take on a bus. I would have had to take 5 days off work because the bus leaves in the morning in Kenora and and leaves in the morning in Winnipeg. It would have left in the morning on the 23rd and then late morning um the morning of the 26th. So I would have been missing 5 days if I had busted. My boss had told me that that was unacceptable, which is why I ended up hitchhiking. Now, this is not something that I had wanted to do. In fact, I was terrified. Um but it needed to I needed to get out there because Ian Scarth and Jessica Hershey refused to adjourn the hearing. Now, we'll get into that right now. So this is an email that I sent them. And we're going to go over this page by page. So I wrote to them and I said, "Good afternoon. I need an answer on the adjournment while waiting for the investigation." So the investigation meaning meaning from the complaints department of the Law Society. You can see up um in the addresses that I was addressing this to the Law Society of Manitoba, Ian Scarth, and Jessica Hershey, along with the victims Winnipeg Police Service, or sorry, Winnipeg Police Service Victim Services Unit. And we'll get into that in a minute, why I emailed them. But I said, "Good afternoon. I need an answer on the adjournment while waiting for the investigation. I didn't hear back by I If I don't hear back by 3 p.m. on Monday, July 22nd, 2024, I'll be hitchhiking out I'll be hitchhiking to get to Winnipeg, at which point I will not have access to any forms of communication. Any responses to my email for an adjournment I ask be sent before 3:30 on July 22nd, 2024. Ian Scarth writes back, and you can see that this was sent on Friday, July 19th at 12:29 p.m. He writes back the same day at 1:24 p.m. He writes back, "Ms. Mayaska, please clarify whether you are requesting an adjournment for the hearing by the panel, and if so, the reasons for such a request. As indicated in earlier correspondence, procedural issues must be raised accordingly to the process set out by the panel." Okay, fair enough. I write back to him, and this is at 2:53 the same day. And this time I also included the UN. And I said, sorry. Again, I'm reading this off of the paper as we're going, but see, this is the email from Ian Scarth that I just read out to you. So this will be the next part. And it says, "There are many reasons I need an adjournment. First, personal safety. I have no way to get to the hearing besides hitchhiking, and I do not have access to video conference living in northwestern Ontario. Once in Winnipeg, I have nowhere to stay, which means I'll be out on the streets, spending 4 nights on the streets of Winnipeg without accommodations or money or food. Second, although I have reached out to a lawyer referred to me by CLEA, so the Community Legal Education Association, no one has been able to take the case, leaving me unrepresented. I do not have the legal experience to represent myself, which will lead to further personal trauma. Third, There is a man on the panel by the name of Corey Wilson who I'm inquiring with Winnipeg Police Services and OPP about getting a restraining order against, which I am going to be looking into that further. He and I went to school together, and I still have a yearbook to prove this, although that should not be necessary. By forcing him and me in the same room together, you are creating a hostile environment in a situation that is already stressful, and the panel is supposed to be a neutral body, which there is no possible way it could be with him on the panel. Fourth, there is an open investigation with the Manitoba Law Society about your and Jessica Hershey's conduct towards me, forcing me into a situation where my very life is being threatened and ignored, and by ignoring my concerns over the conflict of interest with Corey Wilson. To proceed at this point, when an open investigation is ongoing, would show that the Manitoba government allows lawyers to ignore the rights of Canadians and allows discrimination and unfair practices in hearings that are neither civil nor criminal. There are thereby bullying and harassing private citizens by threatening unjust actions, forcing individuals into situations where their very physical well-being could be put in danger or face the threat of losing their Canadian rights to attend their own hearing. And I put extortion, intimidation, abuse, but I would even take that a step further and say possible blackmail. So in the next video, we're going to be talking about what I did this day. So I wrote this email. On the 22nd, I also reached out to OPP and spoke with Jeff Duggan, and we'll be going over his email. We'll also be going over the email from the Kenora courthouse, because I had requested help from them, and again, I received no help. And by help, I mean I asked them if I could use a device so that I could attend the hearing virtually. That wasn't possible. And the only thing that I could do was literally hitchhike to this hearing. Miss Hershey responds, Miss Hershey, are you able to provide me with the position of the college so that I may raise the request with the panel? Yours truly, Ian. Okay, sorry here. So this is point 3 and 4 of the email that I just wrote, or read, sorry. And then Ian's response. Now Jessica Hershey responds, Ms. Garth, the college is not taking a position on Ms. Miazga's adjournment request. The college will defer to whatever the decision of the panel makes after considering Ms. Miazga's request and reasons. So the college at this point didn't take a position. It was the panel. So the panel involved 3 people. One who was an abuser, who literally harassed me nonstop. Now he's being put in a position to have an opinion on my career, literally, and is putting me in a position where my very life could be put in danger, or I don't get to attend a hearing. Like, literally, those are my options. So we're going to talk about tomorrow. We're going to talk about extortion and intimidation, and I have a Black's Law Dictionary here, and we're going to discuss the definitions of extortion, intimidation, and blackmail. I wrote back saying, A fifth reason, I just started employment, and taking such time off would ensure that I lose my employment, showing further financial abuse and financial exploitation by the Manitoba government through its affiliated and funded agencies. Ian Scarth writes, Ms. Hershey and Ms. Miasga, in response to Ms. Miasga's request for an adjournment, with the 5 grounds set out in her correspondence below, and the college's advice that it's not taking a position with respect to the request, the panel has considered the request and decided that it is not willing to adjourn the hearing. Ms. Miasga may attend the hearing in person or by video conference as previously indicated. The hearing will proceed tomorrow, July 23rd, 2024 at 9 a.m. Now, I couldn't leave work. I would have been fired. I really didn't have any other option but to hitchhike. I could not access video conferencing. And so Ian Scarth or the panel of social workers was literally putting me in a position where I was being forced to risk my life to attend this hearing. Now, we'll talk about the Law Society's position on this later on, because I'm going to be going through this chronologically in the next little bit, because as it pertains to the complaint, and then we'll go into the actual hearing itself, and or the I should say the accusations of the college. Now, before we go any further though, so tomorrow I'll be showing you Jeff Dugham's from the OPP's response. I'll be showing you the response from the Kenora Courthouse, and I'll be hopefully showing you the letter, the first letter I got from the Manitoba Law Society, pretty much saying they can't help me until after the hearing's over, because it takes them 6 to 8 weeks to investigate. So Ian Scarth is in this one email. He's saying that the college isn't taking a position on the adjournment, but the panel, the 2 social workers. Now, keep in mind, these 2 social workers work at the Canadian Mental Health Association. At least that's what the college's registry says. Now, putting somebody in a position where they are forced to risk their life to attend something that could ultimately decide their future, what is that besides abuse? And these are 2 social workers who work directly with mental health. The other person is Corey Wilson, and ironically, he is chairing the Manitoba College's social workers panel, even though he's not a social worker. Even though I have identified him as somebody who has previously harassed me, he's being allowed to have a say in my career. And I will be showing a yearbook photo later on. And details where I graduated and all this other stuff, so that people can actually see that, yes, this did happen. Yes, there is a conflict of interest. But getting back to this, so the 22nd, I get this information that they're not willing, even though I gave them 5 very good reasons why this thing should be adjourned. They refuse. So now my choices are, like I said, not going to a hearing that could ultimately decide my future, or risking my life, which also um, ultimately could impact my future, or if I even have a future at that point. Um, so it it really was extortion. It really was blackmail. And as I said, we'll get it more into those definitions later. Um, After I sent this email, after I received this email, that's when I called the OPP. That's when I called the courthouse. That's when I tried every single avenue I could think of to try and um, figure out something. Actually, I'd called the courthouse beforehand, I believe. But we'll go over those emails later on. Um, it is rather upsetting that um, the Manitoba Law Society, they're basically taking the position that Ian Scarth didn't do anything wrong. Now, I understand that Ian Scarth is only a representative of his client. That I understand. But lawyers are required to uphold the law. Now, extortion, blackmail, those things are against the law. But that is exactly what happened to me. I was essentially um I was essentially blackmailed that if I was not able to attend the hearing, I would not be allowed, like the hearing would go on without me. So, and I mean, it's kind of funny. It's more important for somebody who harassed me, bullied me in school to be at the hearing versus the person that the actual hearing is about. Like, to me, that seems absolutely illogical. But regardless, um, so we'll talk about extortion. We'll talk about um blackmail. Um, but it is interesting that the Law Society, um, the position that the Law Society is taking is Ian Scarth didn't do anything wrong. Okay, fine. But that means that his client did. The Manitoba College of Social Workers. Somebody broke the law here. Um somebody put me in a position where my life, I was literally forced to risk my life to attend a hearing. And we're not talking about a criminal hearing here. We're talking about uh, an accusation of professional misconduct, something that could impact my livelihood. And I am being forced to risk my life or not be able to attend this. Um, so that's essentially this video today. As I mentioned, we'll talk more about this tomorrow. I'm sorry, guys, I'm exhausted. Otherwise, I would be going more into this, but I just had a really long day, and so I'm going to say goodnight, and hopefully I will have tomorrow the email from the courthouse, the email from the OPP, the email from the Law Society, the first one anyways, and then we'll go more into it on the responses. But I want to show you that even though they knew about the court date, or not the court date, the hearing date, they weren't interested in trying to look into it beforehand. It seems like lawyers in Manitoba are just allowed to do whatever they want, bully whoever they want, jeopardize the lives of whoever they want. And you know what? It's only when people like I know a lot of people are like, why is she doing this? Why is she speaking out? Does she not know what kind of um what the ramifications could be? Yes, I I know some of the ramifications. I won't say I know them all, but I'm kind of aware of what some of them could be. Um, but what I do know, it is so important that this stuff get out, because how many Canadians' lives got put in danger because of lawyers backing them into a corner where they didn't have any choice. And then I bet you anything, these same lawyers are going to be like, oh, look at her. She puts herself into questionable situations. Well, if there was any other option, no, I wouldn't. But at the same time, I didn't have any other option. I couldn't get out to Winnipeg any other way. I don't have a van right now. And I mean, the government can easily look at registration. My I don't have a registered vehicle right now. So I'm literally reliant on the bus system. And in Kenora, the bus system is very, very limited. So, I mean, either these lawyers were going to try to accommodate me so that I was able to get out there safely, or they would bully and harass me to the point where my life was literally put in danger. And unfortunately, they chose the latter. Now, as it turned out, I did make it to Winnipeg safely. Thank you to the person who picked me up on the highway and drove me to Winnipeg safely. Um, they did tell me how risky it is and everything, which honestly, as they were telling me, I was kind of thinking to myself, they think I don't know this, but I do know it. And it was interesting because this guy, he's like, you must be trying to outrun something. Why else would you put yourself in this kind of danger? And I went, no, I'm not trying to outrun anything. I'm trying to get to a hearing. And he couldn't believe it. He couldn't believe that that was the reason. And even he said, well, why didn't you ask for an adjournment? And I said, well, I did. And um yeah, so to the guy who picked me up and drove me to Winnipeg, thank you so much, and thank you even more for not being a total and utter creep. Um, but um, at the same time, that person very well could have been a very, very dangerous person. And if I hadn't been so lucky, I might not have made it back to even do this video right now. Um, and I think that's part of the reason why I know it's part of the reason why I'm making these videos, because the Manitoba justice system is failing Canadians. It is putting Canadians in situations that are dangerous, that is harmful, that affects their livelihood, that affects their both physical and emotional well-being. And that isn't right. It's not right that our Canadian rights are consistently ignored. It's not right that they are trying to force assessments on people that without their knowledge. And we're going to get into that a little bit later. Oh, that reminds me. So while I'm getting it, well, okay, I'm going to jump ahead a little bit. But you're going to, also tomorrow's email, I'm going to show you an email from Ian Scarth, acknowledging the fact that I was not at the hearing. So at the hearing, no, you know what? We'll talk about this more tomorrow. But what I want to point out is tomorrow we'll talk about the email from Ian Scarth, who points out that I was not at the hearing. But at the same time, I was for the first 5 minutes. So I met with the two social workers, Well, Corey Wilson left the room. Now, for a hearing to actually take place, all three people on the panel have to be present. So the hearing hadn't taken place yet. We were literally just talking about the conflict of interest with Corey. And because I didn't feel comfortable being in the same room as Corey, um, he left the room while I talked to these two social workers. Now, um, after they said, well, he's going to come back in the room, I left. And then the hearing started without me. But Jessica Hershey wrote an email last week indicating that I was present for the hearing. That is false. That is a direct, deliberate misrepresentation of facts. And if you look at the court transcript, you'll see that they Ian Scarth or whoever there made a note in there when I left, and it was before any evidence was discussed, any or Corey Wilson was back in the room, so before all three panel members were present. And as per the Manitoba Social Works Act, the three panel members, there has to be three panel members for a hearing to proceed. Anyways, that's it for tonight, you guys. And you guys have a good night, and we will talk more tomorrow. I am so sorry. I am exhausted, so this is all I'm going to be able to do tonight. Have a good night.